So Melanie just has so much cool stuff going on that
Sounds
I
like it,
thought,
yeah.
let's bring her up and come up with a couple of specific areas. Hey JD, Jennifer, to talk about. And one of the things we talked about was, how do you create real relationships in the virtual and the offline world? So how do you um, as Melanie was talking about, wake up your sleepy network. So, we've been in this certain world, and then a year ago, everything shifted, or more than a year ago now, everything shifted and we all adapted, and we're kind of in that new world now. It's become our world. And she's thinking a lot about what does this mean? What's the implications of this and what can you do about it? Because you got to create these real relationships and go beyond just simple networking, to make things happen. So, I'll turn it over to you, Melanie. You can have the floor however you want to do it. If you want to bring people up for the workshop format, let me know, and I can start kind of feeding them up here. Or if you want to just talk about kind of what you're thinking about, whatever works the best.
Well, thanks for your warm welcome. And Larry, grateful you found me floating around in Clubhouse with my mic off, in the silent mode, and greatly appreciated you reaching out on LinkedIn to remind me, hey, somebody sees you. So I think I'd love to approach our conversation about lead gen from that perspective. We're entrepreneurs, or we're employees, or as Nathan said, he's working on, joint ventures, and to really kind of divide it in three places. So today we're going to talk about ways to create relationships and hybrid communities. And I'm a teacher's kid. I want to talk from your perspective. So as opposed to being at bullet points and like, here's what we're going to discuss and here's the slide. And I was a good girl, teacher's kid. I've got my PowerPoint, but I really want this to be about you and ways that to help you add value in your business. And we can talk a little bit more, and Larry will give us a great opportunity to kind of help you with maybe some of your challenges. So I'd love to kind of share with you kind of today's plan. So today's plan is that we're going to talk about three things. We're going to talk about business attraction. We're going to talk about building relationships. We're going to talk about hybrid events. And you'll be able to see those in a slide shortly. But before we get to the slides, I really just want to stay where we are, kind of face to face, so that we can have an interactive conversation. It's the only way that we can learn, and it's the only way that we can grow. And I'd love to help you do that. So I'd love to encourage Larry, as we're doing this, to bring people up who are interested in maybe asking the first question on the slide. And I promise you, slide is coming for those of us who need the graphics. But I'd love to ask you and encourage you to kind of raise your hand or open your mic. Let's start with the business attraction corner. And let's talk about which live or virtual associations and networking groups you or your team is a member of. I'd love for somebody to kind of share. Anybody part of an association? Anybody part of a weekly networking group?
Yep, me.
Nathan, which one are you a part of?
Well, Revenue Climber for one, Lunch Club for another, and got a friend in Canada. Her name is Lola, and it's called Being Your Own CEO. I've been a part of that group for like 5 years now, and they meet every week.
That sounds fantastic.
It's been pretty good. There's some really nice people in there.
Are they a mixture of live, virtual, or both?
No, it's all virtual. I mean, like initially, it was an offshoot of something called Host Home Office Support Team. That was all live way back, 6-7 years ago. But she started this group initially on Google Hangouts, and then moved to Zoom like this one. And like I said, I've been a part of her group for 5 years now, thereabouts.
Sounds like a stellar group.
It's really nice. We have some great meetings.
That's fantastic. I think it's a great way to help us open doors, to help you build relationships, find exceptional support. Anybody else? I know everybody's in Revenue Climber, and Jen, welcome to Revenue Climber. Woot woot. So Jen and I had the pleasure of meeting on Clubhouse and in Elephant Strategy Club, which is another cool place to kind of hang out. Jen, are you part of like any associations or networking groups or?
All new words. I'm part of a mastermind.
That sounds cool. Is it live or virtual?
It's virtual. It's a virtual mastermind twice a month, but I don't have anything weekly. I just, like I said, associations, I'm like, what? I've been in a whole different world up until 18 months ago. And then COVID changed my world as it did everybody's. And so the last 18 months have been a full reinvention and recreation. And so I'm still in the very newlywed learning stage. And I should have a whole notebook just for vocab words.
Actually, so an association, when I first started, I was in promotional products.
Okay.
And in promotional products, I was the gift lady. And they encouraged you, in the beginning, they're the people who supplied our websites. They supplied, our education. There was a non-for-profit side, there was a for-profit side. And it took me a while. I went from the paid people who just wanted us to sign up for stuff every month to the people who were supporting you and really helping you grow. So I'm excited and delighted that you're here. And thanks for joining us as we're all reinventing, or as Larry and I were talking, kind of reemerging.
Yes. This has been 18 months of cocoonery, and now we get to spread our wings and fly. So I came to support you, Mel. I'm excited to meet the group and see what you bring to the world besides you, because you're pretty amazing.
Thank you so much. You are too. Jennifer joined me at a virtual event and started singing. And I love Nathan wrote, reemerging is a great word for our times. It took me a while to kind of figure out who I was, the teacher's kid. And it took me a while to figure out, in a really crowded industry where we just read the same publication and shared the same words and named our companies the same things. It was really cookie cutter and we just didn't realize it. And I really appreciate the encouragement to kind of break out of that and differentiate yourself. What I love is Matt put up a bunch of things. Matt, do you want to unmute, turn on your mic and just share with us for a little bit?
Sure. Rev Climber, which is actually more than weekly, to be honest. Larry's had a great community. Another one, H7 Networking Group, which is, I don't know, might even be somewhat going more than just regional. It's going national and maybe even international in some respects. It started in the Cincinnati, Ohio area. It's called H7. It's kind of in between a very serious networking group and one that's just very casual. I don't know how to explain it. That's how it was explained to me, because I haven't been part of many of networking groups. The ones that you must give a name or contact information at every meeting or you're out. It's not like that. Just recently joined an accountability group, quick 25-30 minute meeting. It was actually earlier. And then I have a small group Monday morning, a couple people. Yeah. So
Matt, that's an incredible variety, from like all different angles. And I think that's what you hope for, a bunch of different ways to help you attract business or build relationships or start thinking of the re-emerging.
mm-hmm.
I was a BNIer for 14 years. I ended up volunteering, getting involved in the highest levels. I spent the first 4 years resisting leadership. And then I became a regional ambassador for somebody who just recently became BNI's national director.
Oh.
It's how involved do you want to be? And it's the real reminder as we're attracting business. Are you doing it as an attendee, as a host, as a sponsor, as a leader, as a board member or a committee member? Are you just popping in? So those are just some other different ways, but I love the variety of what you're doing, and that, Matt, the groups are different sizes. You know, it's really kind of a mix of intimate and, you know, able to kind of hear each other, see each other, feel each other. You're not really sure of that sometimes in a really large, massive group. Another question I'd love to ask you is, who do you love to solve problems and why? And raise your hand, or let's unmic. And Matt, you're here. Who do you love to solve problems and why?
What do you mean, who do I, or what type of problems do I like to solve? Or
no, who do you want to meet is really what I'm trying to ask. And it doesn't have to be a niche. Some people would say, I love helping women ages 35 to 50 who are struggling with juggling being a busy mom and raising kids and homeschooling. Who do you love to help solve problems in a really kind of stripped back way? Because that's one of the things that I love about this conversation with Larry. People keep telling you, look for a niche. People keep telling you, look for a micro niche. I had a lot of fun listening to the last 2 weeks of lead gen in Larry's group. You know, listening to Cindy, who I had the pleasure of having a one-to-one with, and then joining her where Matt was for follow-up training. And then listening to Chris Colt, who I just met last week in group coaching. So I thank Larry, because it's kind of the reminder, the universe helps you meet who it is you're looking for to meet. And for us to help each other really generate leads, we need to have a clear understanding of who you love helping solve problems. I don't need to necessarily know yet the problem that you solve or the way you want to deliver it, but who is it that you want to meet? Are you looking for people in a certain region? Are you looking for people in a certain income bracket? Who do you love helping solve problems?
I've never been asked that question. I've always been asked, who's my target customer? And I keep thinking it's myself 6 years ago. But yeah, that's partly it. Anybody with like an anxiety, serious anxiety, that wants to change the way their mind operates or feels, not be so anxious, would be one. But I wouldn't mind trying to help someone in other areas of their life as well. I mean, I can point them to other people, but just in general, yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's the answer to my question about who, I guess.
That was really great, because if you're interested in helping people with fear and anxiety, come hang out with Jennifer and the people on Clubhouse in Elephant Strategy Club. They meet every morning at 9:30, Monday through Friday. And it's just a room on Clubhouse, but it might be a good place. Lachelle, who runs the club, fear, anxiety, and depression were kind of her jam, and helping people be mentally healthy and plug into a spiritual side also. So if that's a good fit from, you know, some of the prior discussions maybe that you had, you know, when we were in Cindy's room, maybe that might be a good place just to check it out. And we can share a link for Elephant Strategy Club for you, so you can find them later. I'll look up the link, or Jen will help me share the link for the room. But okay. Anybody else? Jen, you have your audience in there. So Jen, you like to help women, you say, who feel stuck in the life they were told to live versus the life they're meant to live. And that you do it because you spent the majority of your life being placed in a mold that you don't fit into. And I can definitely vouch for it. You help others to be bold, to break the mold, and to rise. I think it's cool because you're saying you also have another segment that you like to help solve problems for, which are tweens or teens ages 12 to 18 at the school level, and you like to help them from stage so they can hear the power of choice determines their life, not just the things that happen in their life. That's fantastic. Would anybody else like to share?
Nathan actually accidentally sent his directly to me, so I'm going to copy and paste it and put it into the live chat. So this is Nathan. From Nathan.
We want to thank you, Jen. Larry, I think Jennifer is volunteering to be our scribe.
Well, Nathan sent
Perfect.
it to me accidentally privately instead of to everyone.
Private chat.
So
Yeah, sorry about that. My mistake.
Hey, that's okay. We were having a little private chat, and sometimes we forget to change them.
No problem. Nathan, can you read it out loud for us? And or I or
Take
Larry.
myself off mute. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
I said I love working with entrepreneurs who are looking for joint ventures. My main area of expertise is software, though I'm open to other areas too. My approach is intuitive, meaning that I only know if an opportunity is right for me by how it feels, and I wish I could be more precise.
So I absolutely love that, because floating around as the teacher's kid and trying to figure out how to distinguish myself in really crowded markets, I ended up meeting, and I mentioned Elephant Strategy Club, Lachelle Atkins, who's hashtag America's Supermom. She has 15 children.
Oh,
And
fantastic.
Lachelle runs that amazing Elephant Strategy Club. And at the same week that I met Lachelle, almost 2 years ago, I had the pleasure of meeting a woman who's an intuition coach. Her name is Sherry Simpson. And Sherry helps you connect to your intuition so that you can kind of clear some of your money mindset challenges. She has a really unique way of doing it, and I appreciated it because Sherry was the third coach to lead me to something called human design, which really helped me tap into my intuition. And it was the third coach. The first two coaches presented it, and I got a little piece of it because I wasn't studying it. So whether it was learning to tap into my intuition of how to help somebody solve a problem, or who to work with, or who to collaborate with, or whether a client was a good fit for me, because we've all had those clients that on paper look like dream clients, and they could become the nightmare clients. So I really, really appreciate the fact that human design was another way to kind of tap into my intuition. It's really helped me a lot in terms of expanding services, figuring out when to show up, or like Larry found me in Clubhouse that day, I didn't turn my mic on. It kind of helped me figure out why or when or where. So I really, really appreciate that. I'd love, while we're talking, anybody else want to share who you love working with? Because it just will help us as we go through with it. I just teacher's kid, I need to make sure that I'm helping you move the needle somehow, for lack of a better word, or get unstuck in the quicksand. JD?
I'll offer. I mean,
Thank
why
you.
not? There's so few of us here. We all should offer, right? It's kind of like almost taking a circuitous route to the ideal client or the avatar question. And I'm one of those folks that work with a lot of people who have target markets. I truly don't. I could be working with an executive one day and a professional in transition on the next day. So for me, executives, entrepreneurs, professional service providers who are boutique in their businesses, high-level salespeople, usually people in transition, director level and up, people who really have a problem or a conundrum in their messaging for branding. So those are the folks that I'm passionate about engaging with, because I reach a level of trust with them where they're willing to go deep with me and just basically pull it out and dredge up their narrative. And that, for me, in my mind, I kind of assume the role of an advisor as opposed to just somebody that's trying to provide a service. And I think that's what we should be doing as consultants and coaches. We're part of our clients' teams. We're a valued part of the team. We're not just collecting a payment to do something for them, but truthfully solving a problem. And right now, There's so many people who are clouded and confused and have ambiguities regarding their value proposition. And it gives me great pleasure to help them sort that out. That's all I got.
That's everything. We're really grateful for people like you who help us dig through the narrative.
Oh, stop it.
Or excavate. Hey, you know what? I'm a teacher's kid. There's a lot of channels. There's a lot of interest. It's just like human design. First 2 times people brought it to me, I didn't really look at it. It wasn't the right time.
Yeah.
The third time somebody presented it and framed it in a way.
Yeah.
So I could really understand what the value was. So,
Yeah.
no, I appreciate people like you. And please, I encourage you all, let's connect on LinkedIn and other places. But I'd love to continue that discussion and help you find some.
You know, the other piece I'll say is that I never answer the question, who am I looking for? I find that to be a very vague question because I don't prospect. I don't do things the way other people do. I play the inbound game. And the better question for me is, what kind of people do I want banging on my door, as opposed to who I go looking for? I don't go looking for anybody. I network a great deal. That's how I found Larry. Found Larry on Clubhouse. Seen his Revenue Climbers group pretty much weekly. I think, Larry, I'm attending something every week. I know my schedule is going to get very, very crowded very soon, but at the same time, maneuvering through these online communities, I meet good people in every one of them. Sometimes I just can't commit to a regular group, but when I'm there, body and mind. So.
That's fantastic. One of the other things I wanted to talk to everybody about was, when you're building relationships, how do you connect or stay in touch before, during, and after hybrid, live, or virtual events? And JD, I see you're leaving us shortly. Thank you so much for sharing some gems before you bop out. So how do you connect and stay in touch with people? I mean, what's the easiest, best way for you as you're trying to build relationships?
Yeah, I have to vamoose in a little bit. For me, it starts on LinkedIn, and typically that's where it should start. There's a school of thought that you want to get people off LinkedIn and into your regular email as soon as possible, and then from there into a Zoom situation. I think that's the natural progression, but I meet a lot of folks, especially in companies, who have layers of firewall, and sometimes our emails may not go through. So the LinkedIn messages do go through. So I'll communicate as long as need be on LinkedIn, and then transition it into regular email. But my goal is to get people on one-on-one Zooms.
That's great. That's great. Nathan, you're nodding. Same thing, or it's something different?
Same thing. I mean, one thing about me is I hate texting, and some people really like to have a conversation that way. I don't, because I suck at it. And I also have learned that texting, I make a lot of mistakes. If I can get somebody into a conversation, whether it's just voice or Zoom, that makes all the difference in the world, because we can see each other. We can have as close to a real face-to-face conversation as possible. To me, that means everything.
That sounds great. Are you measuring the conversations at all? Or do you measure like how many you're having, what stage they are, whether it's through a CRM or you're looking for ROI or some other industry standard? How do you measure it?
I'm looking for people to get to know them, to see if there's something there. And I'm not trying to necessarily get something out of a first meeting. I just want to talk to people. I mean, my number one goal when I talk with somebody is to create an atmosphere like a fireside chat. I want them to feel really comfortable. And that's been the overall feedback I usually get. It's like, wow, this is great. You didn't try to sell me anything. But the thing is about a JV is, if I'm going to do something like that, there has to be a foundation of relationship. There has to be common ground and genuine caring for each other if we're going to build something long term. So that's what I'm looking for first. see if I can build that. And if I can, great. If I can't build it, okay. Doesn't work, time to move on.
Wow, that's fantastic. Larry's nodding.
Well, it's what Larry does all the time.
Yeah, there's so many components to it. Like, these things are connected. So you're talking, you're talking about, communities and how do you connect with people and all of this, but you got to know who they are, and you have to be very specific and intentional about what you're doing. And I'm putting a module together right now for what we're calling our revenue operating system. And I was working on it yesterday, and it's about know your customer. And I was reading a couple of things that are appropriate to this. So one was Seth Godin, and this is marketing. And I actually did a little video on this. It's right in front of me because I'm looking at it. And he's talking about finding finding out what the belief is of the person that's your customer, finding out what their interests are, finding out what their passion is. So it's not a demographic, it's a psychographic understanding. So starting there is really important, and you got to be able to articulate that really well. It can't just be people I connect with or like you can't build a business doing it like that. He's pretty clear on that. You got to know exactly who that audience is. And then I was reading Russell Brunson's book, Expert Secrets, and they were talking about it's not a person or even a cohort of people, it's a location. And I was like, that's interesting. So the idea is you either build the pond or you go to somebody else's pond. And I thought, yeah, that makes sense. And there was a guy, not everybody can do it this way, but that makes sense. So there's a guy he works with, this guy, Steve something. I got his book over here because I'm working on it now. But he built his business out of being in Russell Brunson's community, doing certain things that led to all those people that are in that pond coming to him. And then he's got this other guy, Jim Edwards, who's a copywriter who did the same thing. And I've seen that before, that trick, so you go find the big pond and you become a fisherman in it. That's another shortcut. But I think the commonality of all these things that you're talking about with this is intentionality.
It really is. And for me, it really kind of floated around for me until I found Jeffrey Davis of Tracking Wonder. He helps you brand with integrity. And you'll see one of the slides advertises his Wonder Summit that's coming up on October 2nd. It's free, it's 5 hours. But it's about the wonder of how we can create or work or do it together. But in his community, I was able to find the intention. And really, I think the freedom to kind of create a roadmap, it ended up leading to business number 3. So, after, 6 decades around the sun, I finally know who I want to be when I grow up. And I think many of us struggle with that as we're reaching or not really sure, who the professional or the person is that we're showing up. But I think it's a real key to helping us create what feels like real relationships and to building the hybrid communities. I never would have tried some of the things I do without the encouragement of Tracking Wonder and some of their gems, which are reminding us to step out of ourselves and stop looking at it so closely. So I'd love to share some of that with you and go to the slides. And maybe there's some gems in there that'll help somebody else. Any questions before we go to slides? Because I won't be able to see it as well for a little bit. Cool. We will try that. So this one here, and I hope everybody can see it. Let me know if you can't. This is Tracking Wonder, and it's a reminder, if we do creative work, we need solitude, not isolation. I was the teacher's kid trying to tough it out alone, hanging around in the BNIs and Rockland Business Associations and some other places to try and find, where I was going to leave my mark. I think the thing that I love about tracking Wonder was the reminder to not always do it alone. And I love that about Larry's community and some of the great resources that I'm finding even behind it. They're just that real reminder. I think another thing, I changed my measurement of how I measure the results. I love when we were talking before with Nathan or JD about whether they measure stuff. And I measure stuff now from our relationships or the building communities in terms of something I call ROE. And ROE is return on energies or return on engagement. And I think it really reminded me when I was trying to interact with others and you are wondering the cycles or the, people would say use a CRM to track them, but it was all in my head, and if you follow some of the stuff that they're telling you at BNI or the local business associations, it can kind of create your own track. So I'm delighted now to really have worked out a series of systems or procedures that'll work around that. And the other one that I added, and people still will always look at ROI, but ROE's been a really key to just opening up new relationships and finding great people like Larry. The other one is ROO, which is return on opportunities and return on objectives. And the opportunities part are, as Larry was saying before, about when we're really intentional about who we connect with. People are looking for doors that may be open, or somebody who extends a ladder or a hand, or somebody to mentor you or coach you, or some sort of gem. Chris Colt the other day, they brought him into my LinkedIn group coaching because I have a zillion questions about events. And I was so grateful because I signed up for his challenge next week. And I found him in Larry's resources, and I cannot wait. Why? Because I know it's the perfect place to be. And it reminds me why the ROO is there. An objective was not just to keep, I'm not an event planner. I never wanted to be an event host. I never thought I'd be the hospitality queen. My family jokes with me because they say I should be in funeral services. But yeah, I love them dearly. I'm the teacher's kid with the unique, I know as you're laughing, I wish your mics were off because I love hearing laughter. I cracked up. My mom said this to me a couple of years ago. She meant it deliberately. And the spooky part, my brother and I, as we're helping parents age in place, my brother says, Mom's right. That scared me. My mother and brother are very similar. They rarely agree. But another part that I really wanted to talk to you about, besides changing how you generate returns on energies or engagement or opportunities or objectives, is to think about whether you ever want to host or sponsor an event to help you build and create a hybrid community. I never dreamed of it. And one day I met Jeffrey Davis at Tracking Wonder, and I thought of, wow, what would this look like if I connected with people live and I connected with people virtually? And I tried to deliberately grow my Facebook group a little bit more, which I'm delighted to have a group with members in 28 countries, and really made it more intentional about trying to help people learn to earn and relax. It was a key for me, finding great mentors, finding great coaches, getting adopted. We talk all the time about stuff that's not our comfort level. I am not the tech queen. If I change one thing on this screen right now, this entire display will probably find a time to test internet connectivity. So we really have to be careful about what we're trying and where we are. But I'd love to just share 5 maybe ways to help you achieve your goals to create more connections, to scale, whether you're doing it in person, in online, or both. Creating connections to scale was something that I thought about around the time of the return on energies and the return on engagement and the return on objectives and opportunities, but I never did anything with it. It kind of sat in a notebook. And one day I did a presentation, and I appreciate it because this all happened in 2018. It seemed like the train track was trying to line up and just push me out of every comfort zone to be more active online, to become more intentional about learning to earn. I moved towards it in 2010 and I kept escaping it. But creating connections to scale, which I was excited to launch in Elephant Strategy Club, has kind of become the way. And these are just 5 ways maybe to achieve your goals. And I'd love to share them with you. They're all on one slide, nothing long, nothing fancy. And before I do that, does anybody have any questions? Feel free to raise your hand, or Larry can unmute you. And okay.
I have a question about the hybrid event idea. Are you seeing that starting to happen yet, or is it still really just virtual?
So hybrid events have been around probably now for almost 15 years, in the sense that they started kind of with colleges and remote learning. And it didn't stick because it was unique maybe to colleges or educational communities. But I think as they started bringing in more event professionals to support them, that's become the difference. And now as people are challenged, when people are in front of us live and they're like, oh, I made an offer, they're ready to buy, you can really see who's in front of you waiting to respond. Hybrid for me became a way to combine that. And now there's a really serious, intentional hybrid community. I'm excited because, as Jen mentioned, the pandemic really opened up that community. So people at least discuss it more. And I think it'll continue to create opportunities. On the other hand, many people are tired of virtual. They just want to go back to our world without masks, our world of live conversations, of being on stage, of hearing the applause, of hearing the feedback. I think the trend, I think it'll take some time for it to catch on. For me, it became something intentional because I wanted to reach more people. And I wanted to explore how our different learning styles could be combined into an event to help us learn to earn more while we chilled out. So I think the community part, it's growing. I think it's whether people are willing to accept it, kind of like trying on a new pair of shoes or trying a different drink or sitting on a different beach lounge when you're on vacation. It just, I think those things will really take some time. I'm not sure what the trend will be, but I'm in a bunch of event groups where you can see the trends changing. It's whether we're willing to mix it up. But hybrid allows you to meet more people, whether it's more people live or more people virtually. The virtual part can add like tremendous value if we allow it to. I'm having a hybrid event. First one, people presented for an hour to an hour and 15 minutes. My next one in 2022, people will present as short as 20 minutes. So I think those are some of the things we're seeing. We have a shorter attention spans where we want to get out more, we want to be active more. But that was a fabulous question, Larry. Anybody else? So these are the 5 kind of objectives, and these are part of, I figured out the hardest part when we're trying to create connections. Many of us were stuck on our style, especially online. If you're on Clubhouse, you're not necessarily sure what style looks like. You can hear somebody's voice, you can visit somebody's profile, you can click through on different links. But the style part is the part really where we start trying to build trust. And we can be hard there. It's in the, back in the day, were you all dressed up and gussied up, or I think the most fun one, I went to a conference and this gentleman was bopping around in a golf shirt and shorts, and he's just bopping around with everybody. He was our speaker, our presenter. When he was ready to start, he stood on a chair. He knew it was like the right party atmosphere in the room. And he got our attention. But no one thought that this man with the ponytail and glasses was a speaker. And he showed us style that when he left the presentation, he was going to play golf. And it became a great way to connect with him. Opportunities part, we talked a little bit about before. We think of it sometimes in terms of what pops up or what comes to us, but I think it's a chance to help others increase their opportunities too. So I think of it kind of two ways. Approach, pretty straight up, but varied risks and strategies. And I really wanted to talk too about the hybrid events part. Is anybody thinking about hosting one? Anybody interested in attending a hybrid event?
Yeah, I guess I
Could
have
you
to. Oh,
Could you define it a little bit more?
yeah.
Hybrid?
Yeah, I mean,
Hybrid is a
more
combination.
specifically, I think.
Hybrid's a combination of live and virtual. So the first one that I had, I'll use that as an example because maybe it's the easiest way. The first day we started off with a live networking event. And we met in a bar and we met for drinks. Drinks became such a fun thing. We had dinner together. The next day I had a live VIP day where I took over an Airbnb and we kind of catered in, and a wonderful attendee decided we needed someone to bake. She baked chocolate chip cookies. It was amazing. And that next day was what I call Illuminations Day. That was the real hybrid day. It was live. I rented out a real rustic place that had a stage. It was my dream of starting my YouTube channel. It was a dream of everybody was able to be recorded. And we had people live and in person, and every attendee could meet each other. So the people who were there live came around to my laptop, which was running Zoom, and they introduced themselves to people in the Ukraine and other states. So hybrid is a mix of, think of, of our hybrid vehicles that we have. They go both ways. They use gas, but they're efficient. And it's kind of a way to help events, to help your event get more steam, more legs. That's what I really think of as hybrid. It's a way to mix it up.
I heard the words and I understood the words, but now you're giving me a picture of it. And it does seem like the future. It makes sense. Like, I'll give you an example. I'm part of this group called Men's Living, and it was all in person in Chicago area. And then with the pandemic, they went online virtual. Well, now they have people from all over the country signing in. So now what? Well, they haven't figured it out. So I'm going tonight to the guy's house, but they're keeping the online meeting so everybody can go, but they're not merging them. They're separate. So now they're in a situation where they've got two separate things going on. They have no idea how to merge these things.
So that's the challenge. And that's the part I think, for me, I was lucky as an entrepreneur that Learn to Earn was my jam. I was lucky that one of my presenters presented on 7 learning styles. We all learn differently. We all connect differently. We listen differently. Some of us need demos. Some of us need, repeat it a couple of times, show it to me, walk me through this, let me try it myself. Some of us are solitary learners. And I think that's the gem of hybrid, is that hybrid lets you mix all of our learning styles. If you're at your most creative, and there's 7 learning styles, there's probably more now, but if you're at your most creative, or with somebody like Jen's written a book, she sings to us, she's got visuals behind us, she'll present different acronyms. She's reaching people every way. I think hybrid's that opportunity to reach through the screen, to reach past the handshake, to reach somebody else in a different corner of the world who you might never have met. I was honored at my first event that Eve Voyeveda came from the Ukraine on a 6-hour hybrid day. 7 hours, 10 to 5 on a Saturday. She hung out with us from 10 to 4. With her time change, she's like, I gotta go. And the cool part was we mixed active. Somebody did Tai Chi, it became energy, health, and wellness. So I think if you think of hybrid as that chance to reach more people, sometimes for a lower investment than you would for a live event. I rented an Airbnb for my first one, real intimate setting. The last day I went rustic. I learned my lesson though, because when I went rustic, there was a stage, there was lighting. It looked like the perfect place to start a YouTube channel. And what I learned was when my videographer didn't show up because he had a childcare issue, everyone's video was clear except for mine. So I think that's one of the things as you're mixing it tonight is when you meet the person. So I always say at events, and Jen knows this, I'm always like, let's virtual toast. You know, let's bring a smile across the mile. Let's, you know, let's share something that you want one person to meet before we next see each other again, whether that's live or virtual. And I think those are some of the things to think about with hybrid. It's an opportunity to mix it up if we take advantage of it. It's an opportunity to reach more people.
So how do you deal with the technology challenges of the people who are remote, not feeling part of the bigger group?
So a really good way, and I'm glad Jen's here. At some of the events we attend, there are people there who I've met live. And there are a lot of people there I've never met in person. The thing is, we have to remove the fear of missing out, which is something that the hybrid event could help with. Because the people who are alive are maybe enjoying a catered meal, a beverage that others aren't. Maybe it's a chance to be part of a VIP meet and greet. If you're trying to duplicate that online, you have to look at, Michelle McNabb is great on this. You have to look at all the stakeholders, who's in the live community, who's in the virtual community, and what do you want them to leave with? I'm not an event planner. I'm an event host. And I'm an event host because I know what I want my sponsors, my attendees, my guests, my speakers, I know what I want them to leave with. So then we take that on to deliver that as part of the hybrid event. You need a clear understanding if you're on a board or you're a committee member or you're a volunteer. Hybrid events are a chance to share more of your goals publicly in a small, intimate setting. So my first hybrid event, I had 16 goals, 13 of them got there. The other 3, no video. We learned the rustic event, rustic site, perfect having a stage for everybody else. I was the person with theater training. Those lights were so hot. It was ridiculous. So I should have flipped it. I should have let my guests sit on stage and let my presenters be on the floor because our guests were freezing. And anybody on stage presenting was like, oh my gosh, where's my water? So we should have reversed it. So I think hybrid offers a flexibility that we don't always have. You set up for a live event and here's where people will sit. Here's where they'll come in. Here's where they'll get their food. Here's where they'll get the beverage.
Got it.
I just want to say thanks, Larry.
Yeah,
I'm-
thank you.
You know, I have some takeaways in the sense of resources. If somebody wanted to try a hybrid event, I did it as a retreat. It wasn't a conference, it wasn't a summit. It needed to feel comfortable for me. I wore my Crocs for 2 days. In the Airbnb, I was barefoot. You know, there's a picture of me with, you know, lots of food, and I was not the chef, but we lined everything up and we took that one magical picture. And I think that's what hybrid means. You know, what are you mixing up to add impact? You know, Larry keeps talking about how are we scaling the summit together, hybrids away. We blend our talents, we blend our expertise, we combine our audiences. We put a place so the person joining us live can speak with the person remotely, even if it's in a great community like Larry's Revenue Climber, and you're poking behind, or you're catching somebody on a replay. But I think those are just different ways to kind of use the hybrid events to really add more value, even when you're not an event planner or you don't have the budget to hire one.
Hmm. Interesting. So and we got a couple more minutes. I mean, any kind of final thoughts or questions, comments?
I think I do have a question. Yeah. Sorry, for as of the hybrid events you actually mentioned, I mean, do they have to be from like different styles? Because I'm actually from Singapore, and I'm a brand new startup without like skills, you know, like without any skills or like great skills like people in LinkedIn. I am just started my entrepreneur road. Yeah. So will I be, I mean, if I were to join that, you know, how should I actually start?
So if
Start with?
if you're hosting one, Eddie, I planned mine for 18.
No.
I planned mine for 18 months. If you're attending one, look for a hybrid event, whether you're attending live or virtual, that has a swag box. They're sending you some of the goodies, the behind the scenes gems. Or if you're an entrepreneur, find a way to get in that swag box. Maybe there's a box that the people who are live are receiving. So maybe somebody live would receive a copy of Jennifer's book, for example. But Jennifer's book also could be mailed or delivered via courier to somebody attending a hybrid event. If we were joining the event live, Jennifer might sing for us. So if you have a talent that you can combine, maybe for you, a hybrid event as a startup, maybe having a hybrid event for startups might be the place to start. You find a coach or a speaker, somebody who lights you up, who gives you goosebumps, and you volunteer to work with them and you ask them, are they having a hybrid event? It'll give you a great way to gain some skills, build your community, build your network. Volunteering is the easiest way as a startup, but careful how much you volunteer. Make as much time to learn to earn and to work in your business and on your business. And I was a BNIer. Make sure volunteering matches the energy that you have.
Understand. Thank you.
But definitely reach out on LinkedIn. I would definitely love to talk to you more, maybe, and see if maybe there are BNIers in your area. And I have people in my group, my community, who are in Singapore. Some of them do events. Maybe it's a natural fit for you. I hope that helps. You let me know if it doesn't.
So tomorrow, 9 o'clock Central Time, Connor Doobie is gonna speak. So he runs a content marketing agency, very successful one, and he's got these 4 pillars and foundations for good content marketing. One of the main ones we're going to talk about is amplification. So if you can't cut through and really get known with reach, it's not going to work. So he's just saying, here's like the 4 things you got to really figure out. And he's going to talk tips about how to do all this. So really creative guy. They got a bunch of podcasts. They've got mostly corporate clients, but this still applies to people who are self-employed. So that'll be tomorrow. So Jennifer, if you want to join any of this stuff, you can just go to revenueclimber.com and sign up and then get access to everything.
Larry, I've got just one screenshot of a screen with resources. If it's okay,
Yeah.
I'd like to just share that, and in
Of course.
case, it gives somebody an opportunity later to, creating conversations I talked about the same way as creating connections, that sometimes we can have objectives. So it's just a bit.ly link. And on November 17th, I'll have my next Be Visible Shift celebration. It's becoming a hybrid event again in 2022, but we had a celebration. People could pop in and say hi and introduce themselves. Jennifer sang for us, which was absolutely amazing. Jen, I have to thank you for your great voice, and I'm going to take you up on the fact that you're writing a song for me. But Be Visible Shift celebration will be on November 17th. I have it 3 times a year, and in 2022, it'll go back to a real hybrid event. And Retreat and Grow Rich is a book that inspired me to make a retreat, not a conference, not a summit. It's, a book and a community, but I joined a book club to kind of make it manageable, to make the investment manageable. So the Darla Ledoux ran this book club and we could pick her brain. What I loved was my first hybrid event was called Be Visible. And she told me that I had a fear of being seen. And I really appreciated it. We need the advice of great mentors or coaches, and I really was stuck. Invisible meant I was the introvert, Be visible meant I was, the ambivert, kind of out there a little bit, ready to be seen. But be profitable means expanding every comfort zone. And that really is what led me to occasionally appear like I'm an extrovert. But I really want to thank you, Larry, for finding me under I used to call it my Zoom blanket, but it was a Clubhouse blanket. I now call it, thanks to somebody in Elephant Strategy Club, I call it my glow blanket because my cousin Gloria gave it to me. But thanks for encouraging me to kind of step out a little bit.
Good. Well, thank you for doing this. I really appreciate it. It was very, very informative, and definitely giving me some ideas, to think about. So I appreciate it. So hope to see everybody tomorrow. And thanks for coming.
Thanks. Have a great day, everybody. Have a magnificent day. Stay safe, stay well, stay inspired, and stay in touch.
Bye.